I have been searching for entrepreneurs with years of learning experiences to provide extra value in this special season 10. Today's entrepreneur, first business founded was 25 years ago and counting. He's been thriving and has more recent endeavors, including advanced sports technology, which has been an industry leader for over 8 years. So between those endeavors, buckle up for a valuable journey. Welcome back to That Entrepreneur Show. My name is Vincent A. Lancey. Whether you are looking to start or scale your business, this is the show for you. Each week, I interview a different entrepreneur from around the country and across the globe. You never know which motivational journey will inspire you most. My guest on the show this week is someone I connected with while networking to an earlier guest, Kristen. I had originally interviewed him for a mental health break, as the value his company provides is substantial in that field, but that just means we have to explain all about what he does on this platform. He's a human performance improvement expert, author, keynote speaker, leadership consultant, facilitator, and change agent. With over 30 years of great results, him and his team at AST, they've been leading companies and individuals through transformational change, leadership development, vision strategy, and sales enhancement programs from the boardroom to the locker room. He's worked with Oakley, Mercedes-Benz, Boeing, to Paramount Pictures, UNLV. This guy does it all, and I'm privileged to have met him over the course of a few interviews. Allow me now to bring him on, Jim Madrid. Jim, great to see you.
Hey, Vince, nice to see you again, and thanks for having me. This is such a great platform like the others are that you do, but this one is so great, especially for people thinking about starting their own business and what it really takes to weather the storms.
I think
So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I think your perspective will provide great value. Would you mind introducing yourself to our audience here who did not get a chance to catch you on the other platforms yet?
So Jim Madrid, CEO, founder of Advanced Sports Technology. We did found it about 8 years ago, but we really didn't do much with it, just kind of dance around, seeing if it would take and so on. And in the last 2 to 3 years, it's really kind of taken a life of its own. And we're launching and growing and so on. So in my background, a little bit what you said, I've been doing this for over 30 years. And I've had the opportunity to just serendipitously been around some great high performance leaders, coaches, and so on, and had the opportunity to interview them myself and learn from them and get mentored by them. It started off with that age 19 by Jim Nordstrom, God rest his soul, from the Nordstrom family. But you just can't get better than that when you're talking about culture. So kind of all started from there.
Yeah, you have valuable lessons. I've had the great privilege of speaking with you already. You're talking about this Nordstrom experience. Let's talk more about that, as well as that moment where you said entrepreneurship's what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, that there's not enough time on the show to talk about that. But how's this? Grew up in Seattle, Washington, in kind of a poor neighborhood called White Center, also known as Rat City. My mother was a shoe salesperson. She started working at Nordstrom in 1952, selling children's shoes. My dad was a truck driver. I was a middle child of 5. I watched my parents, what great, lessons I learned from them and work ethic and positivity and optimism, and really an environment that you can do anything, no matter what your circumstances or environment is, strong belief and so on. And then turned 15 and I went to work at Nordstrom in the stockroom. And then at 16, I started selling children's shoes. At 18, Vincent, I thought it'd be a little bit more fun to sell ladies' shoes. And it was, And the weirdest thing happened, I was like 19, going on 20. And the sales manager, the department manager for ladies' shoes at the store I worked at in Seattle, called in sick. And so the store manager said, is there anybody that would like to do the sales meeting the next day? And I said, I'll do it, you know. And, you know, I had old people that were all around me, you know, those people that were in their 30s. And so I ran the sales meeting. We had a blast. Unfortunately, the department manager couldn't return because of illness. And I got promoted at 19 as one of the youngest department managers that Nordstrom ever had. So I thought, you know, for sure, this was my career. This is where I was going to go. And, you know, but then Jim Nordstrom took me under his wing. Bruce Nordstrom took me under his wing. You know, old John Nordstrom was, I mean, these guys called my mother mom. And, you know, come on, you want to talk about corporate culture, you want to talk about customer service. And hey, if there's anything about entrepreneurship, the Nordstrom story is a great entrepreneurship, you know, story. It's an incredible story. And so it kind of just started from there and learning from them. And then, you know, working in different organizations and so on, I just took a leap in 1992 to say, you know, this is what I want to do. So I went to work for my old boss and mentor and coach and teacher, a guy named Lou Tice, and it started from there.
Couldn't have asked for a better professional role model, really, than the Nordstrom family. If you walk into a Nordstrom, it's very different than walking into a comparable, we have Macy's, for example. Right. Nordstrom, it's a full experience. There's someone right there, boom, boom, boom. But since 1992, you've had to weather a lot of storms of being on your own. Entrepreneurship can get challenging with the ups and downs. What is the two hardest parts of being all on your own, Jim?
You know, probably the number one is keeping the faith. You know, keeping the faith that what you started truly has and can make an impact in whatever, you know, industry that you decide to start in. And mine happened to be in, you know, in human performance. And, you know, that strong belief about what, you know, the difference we can make. And I think probably the thing that helped me most was knowing, you know, everybody's talking about vision mission statements, right? And they became just this wordy, mouthy things that nobody really buys into and stuff. But as a leader and as an entrepreneur, you really have to believe in, number one, what's your vision? And then the question you need to ask yourself is, once you achieve that vision, ask these questions, 3 questions. So what? Who cares? And what difference would it make if you achieve it? So what if you achieve this? And it's like, well, hey, what do you mean, so what? You know, then I've achieved my, no. So what if you've achieved that mission? I mean, that vision. Who cares if you achieved that vision? And what difference would it make if you did? And that gets you to purpose. And purpose drives vision, and vision drives performance. And, you know, everybody that works on our team is that they have to believe in that vision. They have to believe in the purpose. And then they've got the passion for it. And that when I brought team members on, that they see that they can achieve their own personal and professional vision along with their you know, their goals, and both personally and professionally.
Motivating me through the screen right now, Jim. For everyone listening on, that this is attractive to them. They're looking for that extra edge in their life after COVID. Stick around to the end of the episode to find out how to get in touch with Jim, how to request his services. But over the whole course here, Jim, all of your experiences in entrepreneurship, what's that number one lesson learned?
Number one lesson learned is trust everybody, but check them.
I like that.
Trust everybody, but check them, man. I mean, I raised some money, some investment capital, and I was really new at that. And this was in 1996. I went out on my own and brought some investors in, and hey, they said, hey, this CFO guy is the guy. And they gave him signing authority, and I'm the CEO. And this was just on the corporate side. This was nothing to do on AST. I haven't even thought of AST yet. And this was just on my corporate stuff that I was doing. And man, we had some great contracts and everything else going on. And then we trusted this guy and gave him up to $5,000 signing authority. And within 3 months, embezzled me for over $350,000.
Jeez.
So it doesn't matter who told you that Vincent Lancy is a great guy and he's highly recommended. Great. But I'm going to check his butt out. I'm going to check it out and I'm going to dig in and I'm going to find out and I'm going to look at everything I can to do that. And I mean, when you do something like that, but check them.
I have a very, very similar experience. Over the 2020 experience, I had written 3 books, only the third of which was the one that went to publishing. The first one was an entrepreneurship book for kids. We had been Zooming over and over again. I had on my status, hey, I'm looking for an illustrator, please reach out. A very, very credible source had reached out and said, my son does this. So right then and there, that was the end of my looking because of the source it came from. Over the course of the book, I ended up severing ties with the relationship. And I've shared this story once or twice on the platforms because after my talk with my mentors, 3 appointments that the partner had come unaccountable for their work. 2 appointments, he just didn't show up. And I had a text asking where he was. So there's some major accountability issues without revenue involved. So my mentor saying, Vin, owning your own business, it's not supposed to be easy. This is a decision that's difficult. And if there's no money involved and you can't trust this person, how are you going to work together with them come money? So I had to end that. And from that point on, I was blessed to link up with Chris Bridge, my next illustrator on Mr. Lancy Talks Mental Health through networking. Shout out to
great job.
She's amazing. Dr. Denise introduced me through networking. And this woman has been with Barbara Bush Foundation, Whole Foods, some real good work she's accomplished when I looked at what she's done. So that was my lesson learned. Very, very similar. And you can't do that without trial and error in entrepreneurship. You got to fail or tweak it.
By the way, I need you to send me her information. Okay. So, because my next book, and here's another thing I was thinking of was feedback. Some trusted advisors. There's people that right now still that really don't know the youth sports business. And they ask questions and you think that because your content, your program so well that everybody else should know what you're talking about. It just makes sense. But for somebody that's not really into sports, well, why would they do that? And those are great questions. It's like, it's obvious over here that people, in the space, your parents and so on, of youth, they get it. But here's somebody that's not into sports at all. And when we talk to them and give them that, well, why would they pay that kind of money? And you kind of ask yourself, well, you think at first, you go, well, that's a stupid question. You should see what's going on in the space, right? But it's a good question. Why would they, right? So feedback is the breakfast of champions. I would not be where I am today if I didn't take the feedback. And by the way, feedback's going to sting. It's supposed to sting. Okay. And at first it's like, make sure my wife's not listening, but it's like when she tells me something, I go, well, you don't know what you're talking about, kind of thing. Self-talk goes on, but she really does. Right. And then the worst thing is, I told you so. I told you so, so you've got to listen to it and you've got to listen to it and it may sting. It's like, I can give a talk and then, get the evaluations, and probably 3 or 4 times a year, I do that. And I want the evaluations. And I tell the people I want the good, the bad, and the ugly.
It's supposed to sting if it's the right feedback. That's right. The ugly.
Right. That's right. And it's going to sting, but you got to listen to it. You've got to listen to it. So that's probably a good thing is get advisors, trusted advisors, ask a lot of questions. Hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Why wouldn't you do it? Why would you do it? Whatever your product, whatever your program is.
A major turning point for me in my young career still was not taking things personally after a few years, just taking every single statement constructively, whether I agree with it or not, understanding that there's more point of views and perspectives than just my own. Sometimes I could be blinded by my light. So I'm big into asking questions, have a great support crew around me, great
Right.
mentors I'm blessed with. But if you talk about feedback, if we could have feedback in a conversation here with any entrepreneur, dead or alive, Jim, who are you sitting down with?
Who am I sitting down with? I would sit down with, uh, it's a great question. And I would sit down with, why his name escapes me, but he's the one that started Quicken. And if you look at Quicken Loans with Rocket Mortgage and what he's done with the Rocket group of family group of companies, he's done an incredible job. I'd love to sit down with Dan Gilbert. That's who I would love to sit down with and talk with. I mean, if you go on to his and look at Dan, are you online right now? If you look at Dan Gilbert, Investments and look at the from Zenith helmets that the NFL is now wearing. He owns the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's got software companies, developers, the things that he's done.
Very diverse portfolio, yeah.
Right, and he's also, he was, back in November 2019, even earlier than that, he was moving everything from online in home. Rocket Mortgage is a tech company that does loans. It's basically as simple as they are, you know. So you look at that. I mean, he's incredible. And then he did a public offering, an IPO last year. Stock's doing well, and they're one of the top mortgage lenders in the country right now.
Let's take it a step further here, Jim. Where would this meeting be? Where would you have this meet?
I'd have it at his house around his kitchen table. That's where I would do it, because that's where he would probably feel the most comfortable and probably the most vulnerable to tell anybody the ups and downs.
Love that.
The ups and downs.
Absolutely.
I mean, that would be the place.
Great response. Great choice there. Now we're going to look short-term and long-term, Jim. All of your entrepreneurial endeavors. What are we seeing short-term?
Short-term, we're doing a first round, investment offering right now, looking for some capital, and we're ready for it. And I got to tell you, you've really got to be ready for it. And in your mind, as an entrepreneur, you really got to be, come on, I'm a kid out of Rat City, Washington, right? Seattle. And, I've got guys, I'm out there talking to people about first round at $1,250,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's a Rat City kid asking for $1 million. It's like, I go back to town there and say, hey, if I can go back to little Jimmy Madrid when he was, 12, 13 years old and say, dude, step it up because you're worth it. You're worthy of it, and that's short term. And then long term is retirement. I mean, and retirement to me, by the way, isn't kicking back and playing golf every day. Retirement to me is enjoying my life with my wife and my kids. I've worked my butt off all these years, and so has my wife. And retirement to me is taking the time that all the things that I've worked for is to get to this point.
Yeah.
But I first and foremost, in the next 2 to 3 years, I want to get AST up to being the premier mental fitness program in the country, if not the world.
Well, I look forward to collaborating further on that respect. We have your conference coming up next year, which I can't wait to get going with. We're going to do a lot of great things for mental health together. If this is a topic that interests you, you know how to find my other podcast, A Mental Health Break. Search through all the episodes. You'll find a great one from Jim. And now we are going to hear all about his perspective on the Spotlight story. For all the listeners that are new to this show, each week I share the journey of a fellow entrepreneur to inspire you from a different perspective. And this week, we're going to have a journey of an entrepreneur who made some noise in California, like this entrepreneur we have in the show today, in Cornelius Vanderbilt, and obviously most affiliate him with New York, where his museum and a lot of history is. But There's a lot of success in California too. He started his own fleet of boats in 1929 with 100 plus steamboats. They worked the Hudson River, and his prices became so cutthroat, as the article puts, his competitors fled the market. In 1849, here came the California Gold Rush. Vanderbilt initiated an ocean-going service that took people from the West Coast to Central America, and this helped add to his fortune because he was bringing all the 49ers to California. His ships brought the passengers to the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua in Central America. Then they would cross the Pacific coast, and they took one of his ships to California for $500 per passenger. Think about that, the way the dollar bill has changed. In the 1960s, he was all over the railroad business, and in 5 years, he already earned $25 million. Again, $25 million in 1960s. Jim, I know you're going to have great perspective on this one.
You know, I think about that, but you think about the book Grit, okay, by Dr. Angela Duckworth. Determination, perseverance, and passion. Hey, those people had grit. I mean, they had grit. And you got to believe it just wasn't as simple as doling out $500, hopping on a boat, doom, and then ending up in San Francisco. You know, come on, it wasn't that easy. I mean, stuff happened along the way, right? And there was probably delays, and maybe the ship wasn't there. I mean, in all the different things that, you know, the passion that you have, the determination to make it happen, and the perseverance that we can persevere through these storms. You know, to me, it's like that's a great story, and you know, and it's a great example of those that ended up quitting and gave up. Then I gotta say, they just didn't have, you know, it wasn't that significant. Their vision of what they wanted to make happen just didn't have the significance that they had. And I always say, we all wake up with two things that we have in common that we're looking for in the day: happiness and some sort of significance in our life, right? So it wasn't that significant. And those that did persevere, those that did get through and weathered the storm and made it happen, they truly were the epitome of grit. I always look at and think about in my own, what drives me is another entrepreneur named Howard Schultz, Starbucks. What he went through, if you know his story, what he went through, you know, he's out of Chicago, he's selling coffee equipment, grinders and coffee makers and stuff on the commercial side. And Starbucks was their little store that was a wholesale bean store in Seattle, you know, in Pike Place Market, Seattle, Washington, owned by 2 or 3 guys. And he would call on them. And over about a year period, he just kept on grinding on these guys, literally. I want to buy the company. I want to buy the company. I want to buy the company. So finally, they just got sick of it, and they sold him the company for $1 million. This is 1973, 74. And he had this great idea, Vincent. He had this great idea that he was going to sell coffee in a paper cup for $3. And at the time, coffee sales were already down, and you could buy a cup of coffee in a restaurant for 50 cents in a ceramic cup. Now, he set out to raise $20 million for this concept that he had, right? And he got laughed at by so many people. And it took him about 2 or 3 years to raise all the capital. But look at that guy had grit, you know, the determination, and the amount of no's and turn downs. And how many times somebody said, wait a minute, let me get this straight. You want to sell a cup of coffee in a paper cup for $3? Who the hell's going to do that? That was like, you know, selling a bottle of water when, you know, we were drinking it out of a hose. You know, it's like, water's free. What are you talking about? Right. But the creativity that he had, you know, and, you know, the thing about it is that he built a company to last, and it goes way beyond Howard Schultz. And the company wasn't all about Howard Schultz. And I've learned that lesson. The AST, Advanced Sports Technology, is not about Jim Madrid. It's about the product. It's about the concepts and what it can do to the masses. That's what it's about. Jim Madrid's got to take his ego and step back and build the company around the ego of the company and not around Jim Madrid.
I love the entire analysis, starting with the grit, never giving up, just like your story from Rat City, came out thriving. I even had my one podcast. It was unintentional. I wasn't looking for an extra spotlight, but it was a mental health break with Vincent A. Lancey. After this, I ended up chopping off with Vincent A. Lancey, because that's not what I want people to think about when they had the podcast. The purpose of that show is to help others improve their mental health, feel more confident day to day, and thrive each day. Jim, the whole episode filled with value. I can't thank you enough for joining on another platform. I loved how, for difficult parts of an entrepreneur, stop and ask yourself those 3 questions. I think that will translate to help people's lives directly. I loved your choice for picking the entrepreneur, and of course, your analysis right here at Vanderbilt. Would you mind now, please, taking time for your last word?
You know, my father told me, I can remember this. I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I remember that what drives me is making that, for me in my business, human performance. And he said, God put us on this earth to put a smile on people's face and a glow in their heart. And I live that every day. I try to. I try my best, but there's times though that it's very difficult, and you've just got to go back inside and go, my purpose. It's like a heat-seeking missile, right? The target moves, tries to avoid the missile, right? But as the target moves, so does the missile, and it stays on point. And you've just got to be able to stay on point. If you've got that strong a belief, and you're going to get knocked, you're going to get kicked, and people are going to tell you that, I don't know about this. I don't know if I would do that. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And you have to go back inside and go, okay, how do I get that person to get it, right? And I've gone to guys. I've got a good buddy of mine who's done very, very well in his own business. And he has no idea. He's not a sports guy whatsoever. But he knows the impact I've made on companies. Mm-hmm. And he goes, if you do that with what you're doing in sports, it makes all the sense in the world. So you strong belief. And that belief is and you got to keep a journal. You got to write things down and go back to that, because you could see, I can go back to 2 years ago and go, wow, I've grown so much since then, so I think that's probably my biggest message. Stay on point.
Amazing last word, Jim. Where can everybody find you, reach out to you, request your services, find your book?
Good question, because the sports thing is the same thing as corporate. One team, one direction, helping you develop that vision and purpose. We're really good at that. And if you want my help, get a hold of me at jim@jimmadrid.com. To look at our sports program, it's astacademy.com, astacademy.com, and jim@jimmadrid.com. Happy to help, happy to get on a call with people and help them through their journey.
Thank you for sharing all that, Jim, and thank you again for joining. Be sure to check out all of his content. He is here to help. He's got a lot to offer. And also check out the show on whatever social media platform is your favorite. That Entrepreneur Show on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and at Podcasts by Lancey on Twitter, so you have updates from everything I do. My handles are at Vincent A. Lancey for all social media and YouTube, and my website is vincentalancy.com. If you're interested in ordering signed copies or bulk orders of any book instead of Amazon, please email me at podcastsbylancey@gmail.com. It's time to end the show with a quote that inspired me. It will for you too. And this one is from today's Spotlight Entrepreneur. A little thought and a little kindness are often worth more than a great deal of money. Thank you for listening. See you next week on That Entrepreneur Show.